As you can see, it's another beautiful morning in the mountains in West Virginia. Wanted to take a minute this morning and just share a couple thoughts with you that I was thinking about when I woke up. I was thinking about um, last night we were watching the Olympics, and we were watching um, the ice skating and the half pipe, and I was commenting to Camille about how much creativity went into doing what they were doing, and who was the one that figured out that you could twist that way, and who was the one that figured out that you could make that kind of flip in that kind of a situation. And so we were just talking about how creative those people were, and I began to I woke up this morning thinking about creativity, so I did a little bit of research and a little bit of reading, and found out that creativity is nothing new. um, the rise in U.S. patents shows how creative people continue to be. Um, in 1800, only one out of 175,000 people had applied for patents in this country. But in 2000, one in every 4,000 people in this country applied for patents. Um, it's just crazy how many people says um, in July 31st, 1790, it granted it was opened, but by August 16, 2011, it had granted 8 million patents. But that's not all. When it talks about how fast the first million inventors took 130 years for them to apply for patents, it took only 8 years to gather the last million investors. So in the last 8 years, at the writing of this article, um, it had given out a million patents. I know there was a time in the 1800s when the Secretary of the Patent Office, the U.S. Secretary of the Patent Office, came to the president, and he said, "You know what? Everything that's going to be invented has been invented. We may as well close the patent office." Wonder what he would say if he could see things now. If he could see all the things that have been invented since he ran the patent office. But you say, what's that got to do with anything? What's creativity got to do with anything? I think it's got a lot to do with a lot of things. I think as believers, we're called not just to be faithful. We're not called just to be true and honest and faithful and trusting and all of those things. But I believe we're called to be creative. I believe that the church is helped, the church is aided when its people begin to think outside the box, begin to think about ways that we can touch the lives of people, that we can make a difference in the lives of people. You know, the parable is told of the talents, where the it's found in Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. And I'm not going to read the whole passage. You're familiar with this story. But it's told about a man who was going to travel to a far country, so he called his servants together and he said, "I've got to go, but I want to give you these talents, this money, to take care of. I want to give you my money to take care of until I return." And so to the first one, he gave 5 talents. To the second one, he gave 2. And to the third, he gave 1, each according to what he deemed their abilities were. When he came back, the first man, who had been given 5 talents or 5 bags of gold, whatever it was, said, "Look, I've invested your money, and I give you back your 5 and 5 more from my investments." And the master was pleased and rewarded him. The second man, who had 2, said, "I also have invested your money, and I'm giving you back your 2. And I've been creative." This is the Craig Howard version. "I've been creative and I've invested, and I give you 2 more back." And so he also grants him favors and rewards him. But the third man comes along and said, I knew you were a hard man who reaped where you didn't sow. And he said, I was afraid, and so I buried your one talent or your one bag of gold. I buried it in the ground, so here I return to you what you gave to me. And the master was infuriated. He said, you knew that I reap where I didn't sow. You knew what I expected. You could have at least put the money in the bank so that I could at least have had the interest off of it when I returned, but you did nothing. And so he took the talent, the bag of gold, from the one who had received just one and gave it to the man who had received 5. In other words, God is expecting us to do something with what we have, with the abilities that we have. He's expecting us to be creative. He's expecting us to think of ways that we can use our gifts and abilities and talents to glorify the kingdom and to build the kingdom. What are you doing with your talent? I believe you can be creative. I believe if you put your head to it, you are creative. I believe that there have been times in your life where you have been creative. And God calls on us now as believers to be creative for the sake of sharing the gospel for the kingdom of God. Think about that this morning. I'll see you on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend. This is President's Day weekend, so it's a long weekend. The kids are out of school. But I hope you have a great day. And Lord willing, I will see you on Monday. Mom and Dad, if you're watching, God bless. I love you. Bye.